Welcome to the Dreamer's Edge podcast. I'm Dimitri, webmaster of the Dreamer'sEdge.com and movie critic.
And I'm Nicholas. I do research in astrophysics.
This is Chris, part-time writer, full-time editor.
This is Francois, librarian with delusions of grandeur.
This is Eric, a teacher that's on vacation right now.
And we're going to talk about the big movies in July. And July, of course, is blockbuster month. Like, this is when the major blockbusters come out. So I'm pretty excited, especially since we're going to talk about Selena Gomez.
You're always excited to talk about Selena Gomez.
I am. Love that girl.
All right, then we can move on to the super blockbuster of the summer, Transformers: Dark of the Moon.
Yeah, let's talk about the scheduling there, because there's two other movies that came out at the same time. Larry Crown and Monte Carlo. Obvious attempts at counter-programming here. Nobody's trying to beat Transformers. They know it's going to beat everybody.
Yeah.
And where I feel Larry Crown went stupid is that Larry Crown is an expensive movie by virtue of its stars. Counter-programming is where you dump something that was produced cheaply and, you know...
This is where you put something like Rio.
Cars 2 came out as well at the same time, so that could have been the week before, yeah. So that could have been counter-programming for the kids.
Because Transformers 3 is the movie also that the boys are all looking forward to, and they're not going to budge over. So putting a romantic comedy there, it's just the couple they're going to go with the boys' decision at that point. You want to put something that's maybe a little bit more accessible. Like Monte Carlo is almost more sensible because the kids are going to orient it towards it, you know. And as a matter of fact, it did better than Larry Crown, which is a little bit ridiculous when you consider the cast. Because I like Selena Gomez. I think she has a future in film, but, like, come on. Julia Roberts, Selena Gomez. I wonder which has, the most experience and charisma.
Well, I think if you're a parent and you're taking the kids over, you can send the girls are going to go and want to see Monte Carlo, the boys are going to go see Transformers, and the parents are just going to take a walk.
They're like, finally, my 16 kids are shut up.
I personally think that Captain America should have taken the patriotic decision and, open, on July 4th against Transformers and destroy, because he wasn't afraid of Nazis.
It makes sense that they didn't go up against it, but I do think they blinked on that one.
I watched Transformers 3.
I'm sorry.
My condolences.
And holy cow, was it crap. Every time I see a
I
Michael...
think that's too harsh. I don't know.
Oh, no, it was crap.
Worse than the first two?
I don't... Well, it was actually better than Transformer 2.
It's maybe the best part of the franchise, and the reason why...
Yeah, but that's not saying much.
It's not saying much, but I found it was easier to watch the action. I found the first two quite confusing to watch. This one does look cleaner, so I could just kind of enjoy it as, a mess of robots punching each other.
Yeah, but the mess of robots, all they do is the car drives really fast, and then they jump, they transform, they grab the humans, and then they transform back into the car.
Cool.
How many times can you see that?
Nick, to answer that question, how many times you can see that? How many episodes are there in season 1 and 2 of Transformers, and how many times have you seen each?
Yeah, but they jump.
22 episodes
they don't just
each.
Stand.
I saw them 3 or 4 times each, so that's 160 times roughly.
I have a confession. I saw Transformers 1 recently. I saw it on television.
And this is something you kind of swore you'd never watch, right?
Yeah. The thing is, the first one is really, I believe, I'm not sure if Bay had asked Spielberg some advice. And Spielberg said, make this about a boy in his car. And that's sort of like the basic setup for the first one, right? It's like... And there is a certain element in that. I was actually shocked a little bit because I didn't flip away. I just, I got sort of drawn into it a little bit. Okay, he's in love with Megan Fox and he's got this car and it's, represents this whole, essence of freedom, right? Your first car, it's a clunker, but who cares, right? It's my car. It's awesome. And he's he wants to date this girl, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there was a bit of a hook in there. The thing is, of course, is when the crazy action started, then I sort of flipped away. Maybe because I had to get to bed too. But I mean, the element that sort of made me think, oh, maybe this time it's not gonna the whole Cold War thing, and particularly the moon landing, conspiracy theory aspect of not they didn't land,
it doesn't work.
That's the thing. I was curious about that, honestly, but then I sort of came back to my senses and said, no, wait a minute, it's a Michael Bay movie. And I keep saying that, but at the same time, how much money has he made on it? I guess, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he's listening to us right now and going, screw you guys.
But interestingly, that's what everybody went to see, and they know what a Transformer movie is. There's been 2 of them so far.
Yeah.
What is it about it? Like, what's the appeal? Because, like, none of us seem to like it.
I think it's maybe nostalgia. They had the toy. Maybe some of them still have the toy and something like that, and they like the way they transform or something. Maybe that's it.
The nostalgia factor for the 80s, I mean, they're obviously pitching to the generation that grew up watching the Transformers, and are hopefully going to drag the new kids along to see it.
There aren't that many sci-fi movies that get made when you get down to it, and the safe ones that get made are ones that have built-in back-end franchises.
Yeah, but no one went to see Source Code, and that's a sci-fi movie. No one went to see Super 8, really, relatively speaking.
The excuse everybody says is like, I just want, sometimes you just like mindless action. And that's what they get.
It's the scale, because you can knock over a building. You can, it's just silly. It's just like whatever.
But you can have mindless action and still have a coherent story. I mean, like Terminator 2 had mindless action, and yet it was a great story.
Was it?
Yeah.
They were.
For as much talking about summer movies, that was a great one.
But there's craft in it. I don't think the craft of Transformers is at the level of Terminator 2.
No, it's a video game. That's what Transformers looks like, honestly.
I like the video game analogy because it's even the way they're written. It's just like you've got to go here, then you go to this level, and you do this, and you get this, and you can do this. And it's just very much like a.
Oh God, this is so bad.
I'll confess to you that the major reason why I didn't see Transformers 3, whereas I did see for the first and second one, is that, the second one sort of made me realize that I've seen about as much awesome as I need in my entire life. But there's also the fact that Megan Fox wasn't in it. Believe it or not, when I heard of Megan Fox wasn't in Transformers 3, and I was like, okay, well then I'm really not seeing it. She was the most charismatic presence in the first 2 movies, and she actually was driving the story because she was the only one who wasn't shouting all the time. And so when she cried for her boyfriend, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be sad. Okay, I'm here with you. I know where the story's at again.
Yeah, it's true. Of all the things I could say about the second one, she actually had...
Oh, she was eye candy, for sure.
No, but she actually was a little bit more interesting. She was like,
Oh, no, I hate Shia LaBeouf, like, in those films. And I hate the parents. Oh, yeah.
So with her gone, the only presence that doesn't shout in a Michael Bay movie, I was like, I'm not watching that. Why in God's name would I do that?
How do you know that the other girl doesn't shout as well?
She's British.
All right, anybody want to talk about Horrible Bosses?
Oh, that was good.
I have one.
That was really good.
Joking.
Was it as good as Monte Carlo? Really?
I didn't see.
I skipped Monte Carlo. I'm sorry. So, what about Horrible Bosses?
It wasn't horrible. It was actually very good. And the bosses are hilarious. And Kevin Spacey probably played the biggest a-hole that you could ever find as a boss in Swimming in Sharks. And he ups the scale even more, in this film. He's great. And even Colin Farrell, who I hardly recognize, is hilarious. The entire film had me laughing out loud.
Well, that's the difference of watching a comedy alone and in a theater. I find it's generally easier to laugh.
Obviously, but
in a crowd.
It's funny. I have to actually. I found out that I am built completely the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, I will watch a comedy at home on TV and completely alone with therefore no inhibitions or what. Not. I tend to laugh boisterously and then sort of get caught in those LOL moments where you just can't stop. But in a theater, I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I suffer from peer pressure.
Moving on.
Wait, actually, can we actually seriously talk about Monte Carlo just for a sec? Because there is something actually interesting about this in terms of how Hollywood functions. The movie is based on a book.
Okay.
Never saw that before.
I know, it's crazy. But it was optioned before the book was even completed and released. And the book
got completed. Wow.
Yeah.
I got a story about that.
Go ahead.
Cowboys and Aliens was optioned on the poster before the comic was even written.
Yes.
Wow.
It's almost the same deal that's going on with Monte Carlo. And here's the thing. The book came out. It wasn't called Monte Carlo. It was called something else. I don't remember it. But it was universally panned as the most awful thing ever to grace the literary world.
Worse than Snooki's book.
Apparently so. So suddenly they got stuck. So the movie got rewritten to sort of divorce themselves from the story and got recalled Monte Carlo, and producer Nicole Kidman was meant to star in it. And then halfway through like almost like just before production, the producers decided Nicole Kidman was too old and therefore not worthy of being on screen anymore, and decided to turn it into a tween comedy. So this movie was written like 3-4 times.
Huh.
And it's, having read the book and seen the movie, I can tell you that it has nothing to do with, like, it's not even remotely connected anymore. They go to Monte Carlo at some point. That's pretty much it. But I find it interesting that Hollywood has reached a point where they'll buy, like, with cowboy and alien stuff without even knowing what it is.
Well, I think they're really pushing the whole, like, it's becoming a bit of a gambling industry almost, you know? It's like you see a concept, you think you're going to exploit it, you're going to milk it. You're going for the flash. And I guess, I hate to say it, but I'm wondering if that's not, again, the title, right? The title is so generic that, in a sense, it gets you excited. The same way Snakes on a Plane became this... I mean, when the title was released, it became this weird cult internet phenomenon. And then they had to reshoot scenes with Samuel Jackson because people were like, you know, there's this thing that happens. And I think that that's part of what made that like, example, like... for Cowboys and Aliens, at least, like, again, a generic title that has this sort of weird buzz factor.
But that's kind of foolish because Snakes on a Plane did not do as well as they thought it would, given the internet feedback.
I'm going to jump on the back of that and say that I think it still did well, because anyone who was latching onto that meme went out and watched a movie that didn't cost much money to make.
No, it did well.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like they thought it was going to like become viral and everyone was going to watch it. Like, really? Did you really think that? No, it's a stupid movie. Like, this was not going to be the next big thing. But the thing is, they broke records in terms of what they would have expected to make, in terms of how much. Like, half of Samuel Jackson's movies go straight to video. You know, this one got released, made all its money back, and it was a success. Now the difference is when they do it and then put Harrison Ford, who costs a lot of money, and Daniel Craig into it. You know. That then is, I think, more of a failure than this. You know what I mean? So, fine, latch onto something and turn it into something because that's all you've got. But it's just like, don't turn it into something more than what it is. You know what I mean? Which is really just something that's going to do well for the first weekend and drop away.
Well, the lead up to Snakes on a Plane, I think, was huge. I think the backlash occurred when, you know, people realized that, well, it's a silly movie.
Is that what happened, or is it that we are overestimating the audience that are represented by the web?
Well, they're very vocal, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, you get that. I mean, you know, if you're within, you know, spitting distance of a laptop, you're going to, oh my God, look at all these posts, look at all these blog entries and whatnot. But you're right, Chris, in saying that, like, hey, this is a movie where you have Samuel Jackson, a bunch of snakes on a plane, and a couple of, you know, gun scenes, and then, hey, okay, on a plane. But, you know, with Cowboys and Aliens, you know, massive CGI, Harrison Ford, which doesn't come cheap, Daniel Craig, which is really, you know, an A-lister at this point, you know, like, I'm sorry, like, this movie cost money, a lot of it,
yeah.
And, yeah, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
But what about Monte Carlo, who didn't even take the title from the source material, doesn't even keep the concept, it has nothing to do, they just poured money into an idea that they could have just made directly with Selena Gomez in mind, if that's what they wanted to do a vehicle for, instead of paying something to not follow it or keep the title. It's really weird. Which, by the way, Monte Carlo is not a bad movie if you have kids. If you don't have kids, oh my God, don't see that. But if you have kids, it actually has nice values, and I encourage you, if you're a parent, to see that and discuss what travel means to them and taking part of the world. Small plug for a small movie that I think deserved a little bit more attention. But
what are we talking about again?
I think it might have something to do with the way Hollywood develops movies. And, like, once in a while you have a movie where there's so much... You know, a certain amount of money's been spent on the project, and they just double down, and it just keeps like, oh, well, we got to option this off. Oh, we got this deadline. Okay, well, we got to put more money on it, and then ends up turning into this weird, you know, it takes a weird labyrinth through the studio, and at the end ends up costing so much, and you're thinking, well, okay, you could have done this a lot easier without any of this. You know, you could have made the same movie, but I don't know. This is my take on it.
For Harry Potter fans, the conclusion of the series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Can I just say that I'm so happy that Harry Potter Part 7, Part 2 is the final Harry Potter movie we'll ever have to sit through.
You know what? Don't think that's going to happen.
I know, she suddenly talked about making more
For sure
Harry
she's going
Potter.
to.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
This is like printing money, for crying out loud. She is definitely going to revisit that world one day. And Hollywood is definitely going to cash in on it.
At the same time, for those who've seen the movie or read the book, there's a little epilogue at the end of the book that pretty much felt like J.K. Rowling going like, "F you, nobody writes fan fiction about my series. It's over."
Yeah,
It was
and
really-
especially that epilogue, like in the movie, looks so fake.
But
It
apparently,
looks so
apparently she wrote that before she wrote
Yeah.
all the other books. Like,
She did.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
and,
I know,
and if
but
you
the
think
story
about it in
evolves
terms of
at
where
one
her
point.
life was when she had her child, and and this is what as a child, as a parent, what do you want for your kids? You just want something safe for them. You want them, So, and this is the story that she gives them, walks them through everything, but basically gives them like a normal life. And that's a pretty good achievement for a parent. I haven't been a fan of any of these movies, though. I admit the third one had a little bit more charm, but I've fallen asleep through all of them. I've tried to watch them all, but I haven't managed to do it. I've heard this last one is quite good, but I don't like the actors.
Oh, I hate
going
them.
Back to
I
children,
hate
child
them.
actors,
Except for Emma Watson. I think she is.
and I don't like a bunch of kids pointing sticks and screaming things. Like they haven't made that an exciting battle.
I admit I'm somewhat of a fan of the books. I mean, I read them as children's literature. So and being a librarian, I sort of I have a certain interest in anything that gets kids reading. So to me, my first clue that there was a phenomenon going on, which is way before the movies got started, is when these kids who normally don't like to read were lining up to get the 700-page book, and they couldn't wait to get it. So okay, I basically read through the series, and I consider the movies to really be sort of really audiovisual aids to the books. They're not even, to me, all that complete, because there's too much material. They're trying to cram it into the movies. That being said, I personally don't mind the actors, actually. I think they did as best as a job. Like, they were really cast for their looks. Like, I'm sorry. They did a passable job of doing what was required of them. Obviously, they're also cast against adult actors who are absolutely very accomplished actors. So there's that too, right? There's going to be a contrast. I hate to say it. You're opposite Gary Oldman. Okay, I'm going to try not to suck.
I hate the actors. Daniel, what's his
Radcliffe.
name? Oh, I hate him. I think he's one of the worst actors. I can't even call him an actor.
I don't think it's that bad.
Yes, he is. And quite frankly, I don't think he's going to have much of a career after this.
Well, he doesn't need to. He's a freaking billionaire.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, like, they always want to, even when they're billionaires, they want to prove something. They want to prove they have talent, and he's going to have a hard
The
time.
level of hatred the man has for these
He
kids.
got naked on Broadway, man. That's like he's taking it seriously.
And I'm sure it's...
he's playing off John Larroquette right now.
yeah, he was just showing his shortcomings, but...
Okay.
Season 1
Talking
of
about rich
Extras, Daniel Radcliffe is pretty awesome, is all I have to say.
In season 1 of Extras?
The Ricky
Yeah,
Gervais.
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's because he plays a prick.
Really, man, what has... Where did Daniel Radcliffe touch you?
Moving on, almost
Yeah.
at the end there.
We hate children, murder.
Captain America, the First Avenger.
I liked it. He's definitely a character who could be badly written. Like, and it's easy considering he's a patriotic creation. So it's you're walking a very fine line there. And Hugo Weaving, like, playing Red Skull is actually a plus for me, because I thought, okay, there's an actor I think who can sort of make him kind of interesting in a crazy sort of like megalomaniac kind of way. It's not Agent Smith, but
Well, it is at a certain level. Like, the threat behind it is that he's somewhat restrained.
Yeah.
And you know that he's kind of crazy, and it's kind of the same character as Mr. Smith, but yeah, I thought he was good.
Yeah.
Me too.
But the most interesting part of the storyline is more that Rip Van Winkle,
I love
man
it.
out of time.
Yeah.
Suddenly there's been 50 years, 70 years now. If you kind of do the reboot, and it's just like he's still got these values from another generation. How do you fit into the new world?
Exactly.
And they didn't take that angle with this movie, but that's always been the interesting part of the character for me. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't sure if I really, like, I knew they were going to do a period thing, but I was like, am I really going to like it?
Well, they have to set it up, and that's sort of like I agree with you that whole man out of time aspect is really interesting to me too, because he's adjusting, and he's also seeing America. Like, I mean, he lived in America in a different era, right? You wake up and it's like it's changed.
Kids were sexting.
It's an interesting ending. It sets up obviously the Avengers. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that towards the end, a little bit more of the setup aspect.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I to me that's like that's a scene that should have gone on for like 10, 15 minutes. Like I really would have milked it, but yeah.
See, I wish that scene had been the post-credit scene.
Well, or either that, or take it out completely, and then set Avengers up with an extended bit for that. I'm actually hoping that Avengers is going to reboot that scene, like how it sounds odd, but really sort of like track back to it, extend it a little bit more. Like that to me would have been like boom, But anyways, we'll see where they take it. But overall, I give it a thumbs up.
Getting to the bit though, first of all, it has a great last line that I like. The final line of the movie I actually quite like.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful line because they've established Steve Rogers as being such a contained character, somebody who doesn't express himself in long ways. He's very succinct, and so that one sentence delivers a lot more pain than you would think a sentence like that means, and I thought that was really cool. But I find that scene felt a little bit extra, as you sort of mentioned, because the movie sort of ends with shots of showing you the legacy of Captain America, and I thought that would have been a better moment to start rolling the credits.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That's very true. That they have that one scene of the kids running down the street, and I thought, man, I thought I was gonna get like a decent montage out of that, and they just they just quickly turn away to that. That was a missed opportunity.
But the thing I love the most about the movie, in terms of design, you mentioned that the man out of time thing is a more important part of the character, and I agree. But I think it was wise to do this for this movie because it is, the fourth, fifth Marvel movie we have now? Yeah. And they all have this sort of house style visually because they have to take place in the same universe. And here Joe Johnston has the opportunity to create the Marvel Universe of the past, so he doesn't have to follow the same visual style. And it was sort of a breath of fresh air because I was sort of tired of seeing the same old Marvel Universe movie after movie.
Yeah. The strength is really that pacing, but also just like the cast around the Captain America character as well.
But I like, even when he's skinny and weak there at the beginning, I like his retort with Bucky. He's sharp, he can talk back to somebody and kind of defend himself with words.
He's got a certain level of confidence there. He's like, don't win the war before I get there. Just like that kind of playing off each other. You can tell they're friends,
Yeah,
I love his relationship with Stanley Tucci's characters, the German scientist.
Yes.
I thought was the most touching part of the movie.
Yeah, except for some Stanley Tucci's speech there.
No, I absolutely loved all of it. I really did.
Really?
Yeah,
I liked it. It's along the lines of with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
You're expecting that kind of heavy-handed speech, you know what I mean? But he delivered it really well.
Yeah. And the final message that he sends to Steve Rogers he doesn't do it verbally, which was a nice touch.
I love that. Yeah. That was a very good touch. It touches on this element of Steve Rogers is already that guy, but he needs somebody to remind him of that. And the circumstances of it, that was good. And I don't know, I think the romantic aspect also worked.
Yeah.
Again, it's sort of you've got that last touch, that final bit in the movie, that final moment actually really just brings that back to the forefront. I don't know, it worked well.
I know, I agree. And Chris Evans does an amazing job as that character because we're so used to being sort of a smart aleck, young guy. And here he's playing something completely different, and he's nailing it.
Yeah,
better than Fantastic
Four. Kind of a Ryan Reynolds-esque character in most of his roles. Yeah. And in this one, he brings a little bit more something to it. I'm still, my big fear of this franchise that, spanning several movies now, I'm still not sure how they're all going to be together on the screen. That's him against Robert Downey Jr.
That's the thing that concerns me, because it's not so much his charisma, although obviously he's less charismatic than Robert Downey Jr., but he chose to play the character in such a self-effacing way, is that a word? Yeah. And how are you going to be a leader next to Robert Downey Jr. if you're always sort of, deprecating?
Running his own company, being the, so, you almost need someone like George Clooney to step in and be, Captain America.
I think they're going to really play it on the element of sort of okay, I'm the young naive guy from World War II, and yet he always finds a solution, right? The same way he did the flag scene, right? It's going to be kind of like that, right? You're going to have Downey Jr. with his gadgets. You're going to have Thor as the massive powerhouse, and he's just going to come along and say, "Hey, this is the solution."
Well, everyone else is going to be so cynical because they're modern.
Yeah.
And he's going to have this, at a point where they've all butt heads, he's going to have still an element of like, remember what we're fighting for.
He's going to have the winger speech.
Yeah.
A little wink to Community there.
He might.
Next film, Cowboys and Aliens.
Sucked.
It sucked, and Olivia Wilde just isn't a film actress. I'm not liking her in anything that I've seen her in. She is good on TV, but I don't know. I'm not.
I think I actually liked her in Tron. She had this sort of mischievous thing that she played well enough that it was kind of cute.
You gotta love those eyes.
Oh, no, well, she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think she has skill as an actress, but I think that her career right now is it's helped by her looks. I guess I don't know.
And it's not that she's bad in this one, but it's just like that character is so bad.
Oh no, it's a terrible character
in this movie. Like I don't think anyone could have done a good job with it. But the thing is, Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford do kind of like rise above a little bit.
I don't know what it is, but lately I just come to terms. Maybe it was the Indiana Jones thing, but I really feel that like Harrison Ford is coming across to me now like a real has-been. Like he's trying real hard, but it's not working anymore. He just can't pull off that charm.
Well,
there's
the Harrison Ford of Hollywood Homicide and the Harrison Ford of something like this. And the thing is, I think he's actually like he kind of looked like he bought into this movie, like more than maybe he has in some films in recent past.
I agree with you. He bought in more into it because it is the first movie in years that I've seen of Harrison Ford where he doesn't do the wagging finger of disapproval. Where when Harrison Ford wants to show you that he doesn't like another character, he'll scowl, bend his head forward, and then wag his finger at them. He does that in every movie, and it's just
true.
And it's the first movie I've seen in a good long time that he doesn't do that. And he had the opportunity to do it, so clearly he was taking the role seriously.
The problem with this movie is that Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford are basically the same actor
Yes!
with 20 years or 30 years separating them, and they've even dressed Daniel Craig kind of like Indiana Jones at one point, so there's no like one person, the only person who's kind of like acting off of them is Sam Rockwell, who just...
He doesn't have anything to do, though.
Yeah.
The thing with that movie also is it feels like the first half and the second half were written by two different creative teams who didn't talk to each other. Because they set up a whole bunch of mysteries in the first two reels, and in the last reel, they provide sort of solutions to them that don't match any of the clues in the first two reels. It's like, Olivia Wilde's character is all like you really love that girl to Daniel Craig, and all trying to get him to talk about the woman he loved. And it's like, oh, does she have a connection with that woman he loves? Does she not? Never actually even addressed. Like, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, his backstory was so inarticulate. It's what it comes down to. Like, it's just like, who cared? It was so poorly defined.
And the thing is, it's mostly efficient in terms of filmmaking, but I was bored. I don't remember being that bored in a movie in a really long time, where I was actually in my seat sort of squirming and turning and just,
Actually, last time I was bored, like you're describing,
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
What movie almost beat out Cowboys and Aliens that week?
Smurfs.
Yeah.
Smurfs.
The comic book, the French-Belgian comic book, is one of my favorite as a kid, certainly.
That's because the Smurfs are interacting in between themselves and in their own world, not in the human world.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, that's it.
Interacting with Johan and Pirlouit as well, which is a more natural setting for them as well.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a very good point. I expected the movie to do well. I didn't expect it to come out, neck to neck with Cowboys and Aliens, which is kind of as I've said earlier. I think there's a bunch of producers in a room somewhere yelling at each other right now because. But the whole New York thing, I don't know. To me, it was a little
The
long.
minute that you reduce like a whole Smurf village into like 3 or 4 Smurfs, yeah.
Yeah, but how are you going to explore 100 Smurfs in 120 minutes?
Smurf a minute.
Smurf a minute.
Smurf a minute.
You start with webisodes.
No, but if I can just nerd Smurf right there for a minute
nerd
there.
Smurf.
There's one joke that I saw in some of the clips that weirdly offended me in a completely nerd way as a Smurf fan, where they do this little witty bit where Neil Patrick Harris goes like, oh, it's like, okay, so you're Smarty Smurf and you're, Clumsy Smurf. And it's like, so how did they give you their names? Like, do you get the name when you're born and you have to live up to it? Or do they give you the names after it? Or do you change names if you change it? And it's like, it's kind of cute, but it sort of misses the point of the basic concept of the Smurfs, which is that they have no names. he's called Grouchy Smurf because it's the easiest way to identify him because he has no name. That's sort of the basic concept, and the fact that they missed just something so fundamental to the Smurfs is just sort of like, oh, you didn't really look at the source material.
Well, maybe they answer, well, no, we don't have any names. That's just,
That's true. That's true.
So.
Bad trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're finishing it off with Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
What's kind of cool about the movie is that they actually take the time to develop the personalities of the apes, and it's all done. Of course, the apes are all CGI, and they don't look like real monkeys. Honestly, they don't.
Well, I think they did. I don't know. They seem to have done a good job CGI-wise. I don't know if it's just me. Like the facial expressions in that. I know the original movies were well known for that. The makeup job was like, oh my god, they'd never seen anything like it. And I thought, like, watching the trailers and then the little clips here and there, I thought, I don't know, they do get some interesting expressions out of them.
Precisely. That you got that from the trailer is great because that's the strongest point of the movie. Caesar, who's the main character in the movie, communicates a wide range of emotions just with his eyes. And the animation on that level is so good because you always know what he's thinking, and he's not thinking simple thoughts. He's thinking really complex, love mixed with anger versus mixed with, guilt and all of that. And the animators got his eye movements perfect where you always get it. It's really well done. They don't look like real chimps, but they look like real characters, and that's the thing.
Yeah, so that's an absolute selling point for the movie to succeed.
I enjoyed the original. You know what I mean? And when I heard about this, I didn't feel excited. It just didn't feel like something that needed to be revisited.
Yeah, that's because Tim Burton really...
Really, like, I was dragged to see that movie, kicking and screaming, and told the person, you are going to regret this decision, I'm telling you. And for some reason, I don't know, like, it's like, oh, come on, man, let's, that always happens, right? Once in a while, you get dragged to a movie you don't want to see by a friend, and it's like, okay. And boy, was that person apologizing afterwards. I approached this particular movie from the same standpoint. And I'm sort of glad because everything I'm hearing about it is that, no, the Tim Burton, idiocy that he produced. I dare I say the sort of the family tree diverted into another direction with this one. So I'm really happy.
It evolved.
It evolved.
This was
From
the
a different
missing link
branch.
that we needed.
Yeah.
The missing link.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
High five. And that's it.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, comments, want to share with us your favorite movies of the summer, you can write us at mail@thedreamersedge.com or post a comment at thedreamersedge.com. Just click on the episode's name. If you want to write some comments on iTunes, we're also on iTunes and we would love the feedback. So check us out there too. We also have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and I'm done advertising the site. See you next time.